Right here I have about 61 grams of questionable purity circuit board scraps. If you look at it close, you can see that there's little melted nuggets and flat pieces in there. If I shake it around, there's some, obviously plated, possibly, pieces in there. It's not pure gold, and I purchased this from a customer. Now, normally I don't buy scrap gold like this. I only buy natural gold. I told him though he would have to send it in. I would refine it. That would help me determine the actual gold content, and then I can send him a quote afterwards. And so he agreed to that, and I thought it would make a cool video. Here's about 61 grams. We're gonna take this and refine it. I'll show you how I do it. All right, I added the gold to a beaker. So first I'm gonna add hydrochloric acid. We'll add about 300 milliliters. We might need more than that. And also some nitric acid. Finish off that bottle. Now what we have here is called aqua regia. This is gonna dissolve the acid. It's gonna put it into solution. And once all that gold becomes dissolved, then we can process it further. All right, it's about an hour and 45 minutes later. I went ahead and added some more nitric acid because, as you can see, there's still some stuff floating around in there. Heat's on about 3 or 4, and I'll just give it a little while to finish dissolving that gold. If it's even gold at all, it might not be. If that stuff is not dissolved in the next hour, then I'm just gonna say it's not gold, and then we can go to the next step. Okay, it's a little while later. I noticed there's still some solid pieces floating around in there. So that's telling me that's not gold. That would have been dissolved by now. So now I'm gonna add some hydrochloric acid. That way we can evaporate off the nitric acid that's in there. And let it evaporate down for a while. The reason I'm doing that is to kind of dilute the nitric acid that's in there, because when we precipitate out the gold, if there's too much nitric acid in there, then it will go right back into solution. So that's why I added some hydrochloric acid. And then when this evaporates down, I might add another 100 milliliters. All the gold's been put in the solution, and it's crazy to think that there's almost 2 ounces of gold in this orange liquid here. So I'm just gonna pour it through a coffee filter because I don't need any of those big chunks. I know that that's not gold. I wanna get every drop of this. So I'm just gonna rinse this with distilled water. I just rinsed this down really good with some distilled water. There's still a lot of yellow, which means there's still gold in this. And you can also see those questionable chunks. That's all that metal that was not dissolving in the aqua regia. I don't know what kind of metal it is, but I am gonna save this coffee filter and all that metal for a future video. So the next step is to add some sodium metabisulfite, and that's gonna drop the gold out of solution. So I'll keep this filter and all future ones in this jar for a future refining video. Now I'm just gonna add a few ice cubes, because when I add the sodium metabisulfite, it creates heat. I'm just trying to cut back on some of that heat because you get a better result when it's cold. This is the sodium metabisulfite. I'm just gonna add a small amount to bring the gold out of solution. So I let it sit overnight, and only a very small amount of gold precipitated out of the aqua regia. So that's when I realized that there was still excess nitric acid. So the solution to that was to evaporate it down and add more hydrochloric acid to dilute it correctly, so then I could drop the gold out. We're evaporated down to about 100 mil. I'm gonna add another 100 milliliters, maybe 200 milliliters of hydrochloric acid. So I evaporated everything down to a thick consistency, and then I added about 300 milliliters of HCl, and then I added another 400 milliliters of distilled water, and it turned this orange color. Now I'm going to try again with the sodium metabisulfite, since most of the nitric acid should be gone. I'm going to slowly stir this in. I could definitely see layers forming. We'll just let that sit overnight. Okay, it's about 10 minutes later, and you can see that it definitely worked. I have the burner on low. It's like on 1 right there, 1.5. It's just to keep this stuff a little bit warm. So we'll let this sit overnight, and then we'll test it with stannous chloride. If there's still gold in it, we'll add more sodium metabisulfite, and if not, we can move to the next step. All right, it's been at least 24 hours, and as you can see, the liquid is still yellow. It even has a little bit of green in there. That's from the copper. So what I need to do is find out if there's any gold still in that solution. I did add the sodium metabisulfite. It dropped out all this gold at the bottom. It doesn't look like gold, but that's all powdered gold. And we're gonna melt that down later, but we wanna make sure we don't pour any gold off that might still be in the solution. So I'm gonna do a test. All right, making stannous chloride is pretty easy. I have this little stannous chloride test kit where you can make it, because this stuff has a very short shelf life. So it's better to just make some as you need it. Next we need some tin. So I have some tin shot here. The tin shot is what's going to preserve this to give it a little bit longer, well, actually a lot longer of a shelf life. Now I just have to add some hydrochloric acid. That's why I have the gloves on. I only need like 20 or 30 drops. I'm just going to shake this up a little bit. And now we have some stannous chloride, which can tell us if that liquid still has gold in it or not. I'm just going to dip a Q-tip in this aqua regia, get a little bit on the Q-tip. Let's put a little bit on here. If it turns black, then there's still gold in solution. I think there is gold in solution, by the way. That's my my prediction. If it turns dark, it's not too dark actually. Well, it is turning. That means there is still gold in solution, so we have to add more sodium metabisulfite. I'm gonna pour all the liquid out into that second beaker. That way any new gold that is precipitated out will be in this second beaker. This is all of our solids. This is all gold. You can see some white crystals on there though. That's sodium metabisulfite, but that'll go away once we wash this. We're gonna wash this with distilled water and hydrochloric acid before we do any refining. But for right now, I wanna make 100% sure that there's no nitric acid left in here. Otherwise, we won't get a full gold precipitation. So I have this stuff here, it's called urea, and we're just gonna add this in small amounts until it stops bubbling. And once it stops bubbling, then we know for a fact that all of the nitric acid is gone. Because if there's still nitric acid in here, there shouldn't be, but if there is, it's gonna cause problems precipitating out 100% of the gold. So here's a small, maybe half a teaspoon of urea. Just a few crystals to see what happens. I'm not seeing anything, so I think all the nitric is gone. So we don't have to continue with this test. All right, now we're gonna add some more sodium metabisulfite. So I'm just gonna add small amounts. It should fizz here because we know there's still gold in solution. I'll let it sit overnight to precipitate out. All right, I let this settle for about a half hour, and all I see at the bottom is a white layer, and I think that is just unreacted sodium metabisulfite. So I think I actually got as much gold out as I possibly can. Looking at the stannous chloride test again, even though it's black a little bit, there was a positive for gold. It would be very dark black. So that tells me that like 99.9% of the gold is dropped out of solution. So we should be good to start on the next step. So here I have some near boiling water. I'm just gonna add it to this. We're just gonna basically rinse this off. We're gonna clean it because it has all that sodium metabisulfite in there. Stir it around and I'll let it settle out, and that's gonna clean the gold. We're gonna do that about 3 or 4 times. All right, this is the second rinse. Next, I'm gonna dilute some hydrochloric acid with about 1:1 with some distilled water. I should only need about 100 milliliters to cover that. After the acid bath, we will give it another 3 or 4 rinses with water. and I'll just let that simmer for about 15 minutes. What this does is it dissolves out any trace metals like copper and stuff that may be contaminated in here. This is just an extra step to make sure that we have the purest gold possible at the end. All right, it's all dry. You can see it flaking off, falling off the walls there. That means it's dry. Now we get to melt it down. This is what it looks like before melting. It is in complete powder form. It's just a brown powder. And I'm kind of terrified because if I sneeze right now, that's like, what, 8 grand? Now, I don't want to make bars. I want to make some kind of a button or a coin. I think the way to do it is to measure out like 10 grams at a time, melt it down, and then pour it and see what 10 grams looks like. Maybe we'll make a couple 10-gram buttons. I'm just going to measure out about 10 grams. Okay, that's 10.1 grams. Now I just add it to the crucible. This is just borax. I'm just going to add a pinch of that. I can see it turning into gold, metallic gold. I'm gonna heat up my crucible over here with a MAP gas torch. I think we're gonna re-pour that one into this smaller button mold. Wow, that looks really nice. That's pure gold right there. Still too small. It didn't completely fill that little button mold. But it does look nice. Maybe we'll be stuck with doing little bars. I really don't want to though. All right, so I think the way to do it is 20-gram buttons. So we'll bring it right up to 20. There we go. That's so cool how it turns from brown powder into gold. Oh wow, that is cool. Here we go. Let's see what it weighs. It should weigh 20 grams. 19.63. We lost a little bit. Oh, I think there's a little bit left in the crucible here. Just a tiny amount. I'll melt it again and try to get it right to that 20. That one just looks really good. I'm actually really happy with the way that that thing poured out. I'm gonna test it for purity. Then I'm gonna process the rest of that and we'll get a final weight on all the gold. That is cool. I love it. Yep, that one's perfect, just like the first one. Let's get a weight on this second one here. 19.6. That one is actually perfect. Oh, except for that little thing. Oh, that's a piece of water on the bottom. It is perfect. Look at that. Those two weigh 40.1 plus 19.6. And that is 59.75 grams. So that was very pure gold. All right, there it is. Almost 60 grams of pure gold. So because of the refining process, we were able to transform gold that wasn't 100% pure into 24 karat pure gold. But I am really happy with this. All right, guys, thanks for watching. This was a lot of fun. I actually surprised myself how well I did at refining. I've only refined gold a handful of times before, but right now I have kind of like a professional micro refinery setup. So I can do this more and more often. And to facilitate that, I actually added a section on kleshgold.com. If you click the Sell Your Gold page and scroll to the bottom, you'll see all the details there. Basically, you can send in 100 grams of gold or less, and I'll pay you 90% of the 24 karat spot value of whatever you send in. But yeah, these things are awesome. You can see the little ripples in the top and everything. And I'm thinking about making like little, maybe 2 grams or 5 gram coins or something, like little hammered gold coins. That would be really cool. I haven't decided exactly what I want to do yet, but I'm sure I'll let you guys know in the future, or you can just check my website periodically to see if I made something out of these. Anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you enjoyed it, please hit the thumbs up, share it around, subscribe if you want, and I'll see you on the next one. Thanks for watching.
Thanks again, everyone, for watching my video. If you're interested in treasure hunting and you'd like to see a couple more videos from me, check out the other one linked here on the screen. I also have a bunch of playlists you can look through. A big thanks to all the names scrolling right there. That's all my Patreon supporters and channel members. And I'll see you guys on the next video.